Okay. I sent Christopher Clarke another one. Yeah, Chris Clarke is amazing. He's so knowledgeable. He knows so much stuff. Rin, I am inviting an economist. He's a professor of economics at Washington State University. His name is Christopher Clarke. Wonderful guy, just so smart, so knowledgeable, and very very humble and kind. And the best thing about him, aside from all these other great attributes, is that he is a fan of Tolkien. Let's see. Let's see. Yay! Hey, Chris, how you doing?
Hello. Can you
Hello,
hear me?
hello. I could hear you.
Let's get the video going. Let's
Yes.
see.
I want to see what you've done to your beard recently. Boom! All right, still there. Thank God you didn't shave it. All right, okay.
Oh, I gotta since the I have to do my former employer here, But
I see.
yeah, but
I
the
thought
game
it was
didn't
going to be a
go
mega
so well.
cap.
No, well, right, that's the yeah.
I was like, no! What happened? Did you get brain injury? Oh no! So your former employer's here? Oh, your hat. Your
No, my so the NCAA basketball tournament championship is tonight.
Cool.
And UH is playing in the men's tournament tonight against Florida. So screw Florida and go Cougs.
All right.
That's
I'm
that's
down.
that's the irony. So right now I'm at WSU, which is Cougars, and UH is also Cougars. So it's very seamless for me.
Perfect. So okay, then it's not internally dividing at all. Um, so what was I? Okay, first, unfortunately, I can only speak for another 51 minutes. I would.
All right,
This is
good.
gonna be shorter, but like
Short, sweet. Let's do it.
yeah. Oh, so guess what? I have been in communication with Todd Buchholz as I mentioned, and it looks like
Yeah.
on the 15th we're gonna be talking. We're like he'll be on TikTok, and
Oh,
I'll be able to
cool.
have a discussion with him.
So a little over a week.
Yeah.
Cool. That's
How
neat.
crazy is that? I literally just reached out on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, I have like almost 400,000 followers on TikTok. I think it'd be really great if we could talk." And he was like, "Sure." I was like, "Wow."
Yeah, academics love talking about their books. So especially this one's an older one. Yeah.
I mean, but
I haven't had I've read a lot of history econ thought books. I just haven't had the pleasure of reading this one yet. It's on my shelf, so
it's
it's
a
like you got
good
it up.
read.
I'm like,
It's like
I gotta
300
read it.
pages, maybe.
That's a
And
standard.
it's
Yeah.
so in depth, but like so easily explainable. And he throws in so many modern references. So
Nice.
I just bought this blue one. That's the revised edition, 2020. And he
Yeah.
throws in COVID. He throws in COVID examples. He throws in the first trade wars. So
Yeah.
he puts a lot of relevance. But his old examples are so freaking like they're screaming at me about today.
Wow.
Just like I mean, the reason why like tariffs are bad, like just like why tariffs, like when you have barriers to trade, unless they're like laser focused on a particular thing, they can just be they're harmful to both sides. Like they're just harmful to both sides.
Yeah.
And just reading about like Ricardo's, I don't know if I want to say thesis, but what Ricardo said about comparative advantage, it's just
Yep.
so brilliant. And he never even went to school.
Ricardo is an autodidact, as they would say.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, and they had to like pressure him to write the book because he's like, I don't know if I'm good enough. And then they finally got him to write down his ideas, and of course it totally transformed the field because it wasn't just the fact that comparative advantage or his theory on rent, which is like his two huge ideas,
yes,
but it was a way of thinking. He was an abstract thinker, so build up this model. I mean, today we do it with math, but that back then you would they had these very clear assumptions, simplified little economic story, very clear what your actors are doing inside of it.
yeah.
So this type of abstract economic modeling goes to Ricardo, and he came up with two brilliant models because of it.
And he was a contemporary of Malthus, right?
Yeah, they were best buds.
Yeah, they were
Yeah,
best.
they disagreed
That's
on
so
business
great.
cycles and stuff.
And
But yeah,
Malthus was he was the first professor of there's something economics like no, it wasn't economic
oh,
theory,
oh,
political
I have it in my
economy.
slides.
He was the first professor of political economy in England.
Yeah, I have it in my slides. Let me pull up my Malthus slides because I forget the exact title. He was the first. Now it wasn't like a department or anything, and he was a parson first.
A parson?
Um,
What's a parson?
he was a math- church, a man of the church, ordained Anglican priest.
You mean, yeah, Malthus? Yes, Malthus was exactly. Yeah, he was very into just being religious, and I probably because like the book even talks about it. You know, he had like a hair lip, and you know, even though he was kind of dashing, he had a little abnormality in his face, so it made him a little timid. But you know, like eventually he just became so successful, like, and he was so brilliant. He was just so known that.
He was at the East India College professor of history, politics, commerce, and finance.
There we go.
Yeah.
So do you still think that at worst we're going to see a mild recession? At worst, like a modest recession?
So there's, what are the possibilities? The worst possibility is a huge trade escalation, a huge, giant trade war.
Yes.
So China announced 35% additional tariffs on us. Those are going to go into effect. Trump said today 50% additional. So that's the thing is like no one, since we're not using the word retaliatory in any sort of meaningful sense, all of Trump's aggression then can be framed as retaliatory. Because
Yes.
Trump bumps it up to here, China goes here, and then Trump's like, oh yeah, I'm going to go here. And
Yeah.
we saw this happen in the 30s.
Yep.
Now, when we run the numbers in the United States economy in the 30s, the Smoot-Hawley harmed us, but it wasn't the primary cause of the Great Depression. But a country like Canada and other countries, it was the primary cause
Yeah.
of their Great Depression.
Yeah.
So that's kind of worst case scenario that we can continue to escalate beyond what we currently expect would happen, and then the severity of the recession would worsen.
That's what's starting to worry me now because I was on your boat that maybe we'll get a modest recession, but if we crash smaller economies that we rely on, and we can't get what we need from them, and we're already dealing with a supply shock, that can really hurt us.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I mean,
if you get a scenario where all the businesses are like, I'm not going to invest because this is the uncertainty effect. So the models that are finding a modest effect are not modeling the uncertainty.
yeah.
And so if the uncertainty becomes unhinged and everyone gets scared, then yeah, we're looking at you can get a decent sized recession, if not a catastrophic one.
Yeah.
Depending on how spooked everybody gets.
Yeah, exactly. Because if banks are just not willing to lend, you know, I mean, I guess the Fed will just have to lower interest rates back to 0% and do fiscal stimulus, and then we kick the can down the road for the next generation.
No, that's what everyone. That's what pisses me off so much. Is they're like, oh, we have to do this to balance the budget. We'll lower the rates so debt'll be cheaper. And I'm like, what do you think happens to revenues in a recession? What do you think happens to tax revenues in a recession? They go down. What do you think happens to spending in a recession? It goes up.
Yeah, and I know, I have a lot of faith in the Fed, but if this gets to what you were saying just now, like if this escalation goes out of control and it actually pushes us towards a deflationary trend, can we catch it quick enough?
Oh, deflationary trend? Yeah, the Fed will just print money. I'm not worried about deflation.
All right, I love hearing you say that because it makes me feel a little better.
No, so yeah, the deflationary spiral we had in the 30s is because the Fed was contracting money.
Yes, I get it. The Fed was non-intervent, like it was very low interventionism, right? Like in after Smoot-Hawley, like even though I was reading, Herbert Hoover actually pushed for more interventionism than like we've ever really done before, but we just needed so much more of it.
Yeah, Hoover, I think I was his Treasury Secretary, I can't remember which position. One of his economic people told him, we need to clean out the economy and it's good. And Hoover was hesitant. I'm like, I'm not so sure about that. But he was an engineer by training, and so he deferred, right? He deferred to the expertise. I think Hoover gets a worse rap than he deserves.
Yes.
Not that he deserves a great rap, but I think he gets a worse rap than he deserves.
Yeah, I mean, I think the last big depression, I mean, from what I remember reading, the last big depression before the Great Depression, it was called, I think, the Long Depression, and that was in like the 1870s. And yeah.
Oh,
because there was one in 1900.
Yeah, we had a crash of 1906 and 7. Yeah. We had another crash in the 1890s.
Yes. And there was one before.
Yeah, they had one about every decade there in the 1800s.
So and then... But so 1906 and then 1929, so 23 years, I guess, and the economy was so different than even 1906. Like we just went through a world war, globalization was doing its thing. The Federal Reserve wasn't even like a thing yet.
Yeah.
And it was just like, well, what do we do? Okay, and then so I guess maybe you defer to the business people. At first, you're like, okay, so I'll do these things, and okay, you sure that's okay? And then he does that, and unemployment skyrockets, and wages drop. And then what I read was that it was a mistake for him to set the wage floor in the beginning.
Sure, sure. You
In
need
the
prices
beginning, you
to
know,
adjust. Yeah, yeah. I mean, FDR had wage and price controls too in the
yeah,
30s, and that was a mistake too.
yeah,
But like half of the New Deal was really good, and then half of the New Deal wasn't so good. It was a real mixed bag. But he was trying lots of stuff. So and then he moved on. If it didn't work, he'd abandon
yeah.
it. So
I mean,
yeah,
I heard it was also he was just in pain a lot. So like he had some plans, and then like the polio and just like he was racked with aches and pains all the freaking time.
yeah,
So I heard like sometimes he just would be erratic and just to try to get out of the meeting and sleep. Like, okay, just whatever.
that's funny. Well, he had quite a. He was there a long time to be like four-term president. Well, three and a bit. He died
Yes.
in the fourth term, but
Yeah, but he's the reason why we have what is it, the 22nd Amendment? Like no, and now Congress is trying to repeal it. Let's see how that goes.
Yeah, so let's go positive for a bit. So that's the worst case scenario: is you have the scenario where uncertainty gets out of hand and everyone stops investing, and it just the the market bottoms out. But another possibility is we get this dip for a while, and I think one of the videos you made recently, it's kind of the gradual
Yeah.
decline
Yeah.
of it, and we get a modest recession out of it, out of the adjustment. We wait a year and things start growing again. They won't grow as quickly as they did before. We'll have higher prices, and we're paying more taxes. This is a tax cut for the rich and a tax increase for the lower middle classes. That's kind of that's a real possibility. So I worry there's too much. People are say the sky is falling and they'll lose credibility. I think it's important to say, hey, it's a very real possibility that will grow, but it's just not going to be that great.
If yeah, I think we're gonna. I don't know if I mentioned this in my post, but along with like the balloon deflating, I think like we're kind of getting closer to like the Gilded Age again. Just where so much wealth concentration is just so high at the 1%. Everyone else is at the bottom. Buying a home is a pipe dream, and people are just grateful to have a job. There's no entitlement. There's just let me get my job. Whatever job you give me, I'll
Yeah.
do it. And do you need my 14-year-old child working in the factory or
Oh, I know what Florida's doing with their child labor laws. It's awful. It's pretty
yeah,
awful.
and what if that actually just creates more economic pessimism? Like, what if the doubt in our rule of law starts to create pessimism? Because if Trump starts really thwarting the Supreme Court, like really going against it, and the Supreme Court can't really enforce anything, that could also lead to untold economic uncertainty.
Yes, yes.
I'm normally positive. I'm normally
Right now he's flaunting the rule of law in terms of immigrants, so non-citizens. But what
Yeah.
happens when he starts doing it for citizens?
Yep.
Yeah, it could go. I mean, all these he broke off all these trade deals. That's a contract, and part of capitalism is honoring contracts. So we broke off all these contracts with a whip of a pen. What happens when that starts? I mean, he ran his businesses like this, and he bragged about it. Well, in his most recent election, he wouldn't pay overtime, and he wouldn't put contractors, and he wouldn't pay people he'd hire. And
Yeah.
so, what happens when you start doing that as a nation? It could be catastrophic.
It could be. See, again, I'm not certain the sky is falling. I mean, if it's like, I'm trying to look for silver linings. Okay, so there are tariffs, fine. And I had a ray of hope last night when I was like, okay, so Taiwan, Vietnam, they're discussing zero tariffs, like 0%
Yeah,
tariffs.
but Trump doesn't like the trade deficit. He doesn't care about the tariffs on the other
And
side.
the trade deficit, like,
He didn't pick the tariff for because there were a bunch of economists in the White House who did put together tariffs that other countries are charging. So we matched that. And he didn't do that. He picked the trade deficit instead. Vietnam's not going to fix the trade deficit. What are they going to do?
no, they're not.
Like,
No.
that's not how any of this works.
We have like, I don't know, maybe $98 billion trade deficit with Vietnam. It's like, Okay, fine, but like probably because they process a lot of the raw goods that would pollute our environment if we did it here. So it's actually a huge economic
Oh, I know.
benefit for them to do what they're doing. We import what they make, and then we sell it at a profit here.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's like, or even like I just made a post today. Like, tell me if this example works. Okay, I think it does.
Okay, sure, sure.
Like, let's say if I import $1 billion of milk from, let's say, Canada, all right, and they only import $800 million of my milk, all right, it's like, oh, I have a trade deficit. But if I take that $1 billion of milk, I refine it and culture it, and I turn it into $30 billion of cheese that I don't export. My economy consumes it. That's a huge profit. That's a great return on investment.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah,
okay that we have a deficit.
yeah,
If we could turn it, if we could turn something worth little money into more money, and then we can buy it, that's incredible.
yeah, yeah.
I'm not that advanced, and like that's a simple concept. Like we
Well,
should,
it's just gains from trade. All as someone has mentioned in the comments, and as we've all said, all of us, except if you're a grocery store employee, all of us have a 100% trade deficit with grocery stores. And that's what
wow.
we want to do, right? That's how it works. This is basic trade.
And not just that, but like, tell me if I'm wrong. If we have a trade deficit, that means another country is holding more U.S. dollars
Well, so that's one option. So they could be holding dollars, they could
or
be
spending
buying
it.
treasuries, they could be coming in and investing in our companies, investing in our businesses. So the example I give is, for example, the county I live in, I'm in Eastern Washington, grows a lot of wheat. In fact, we claim we're the biggest wheat growing county in America.
Oh, wheat. Okay.
Wheat in the ground, and because farming, we export. We export. Our farmers export a lot, and the wheat here, most of it, according to my colleagues, goes to Japan. Now we buy Mario Brothers and Nintendo and other cool stuff from Japan, but we have a trade deficit. So we end up buying more cool stuff from Japan than they buy wheat and other things from us.
Yeah.
So what does Japan do with that money? Well, they are the world's largest treasury holder, but additionally, they come into the U.S. and they invest in U.S. steel, expand their production, increase U.S. jobs, increase American
Yeah.
steel production. So, like, that's productive. Like, we want them to come in and build businesses here. And
And and let's just think about this. China has protective tariffs. They were maybe 15% tops, before the trade war. But let me just say, so they tariffed some protective stuff, but it's like, okay, well, they're a developing economy and they need key industries. So they protect that key industry, it develops and it turns these people into consumers of our products.
yeah,
That helps us. So the tariffs can be good. The tariffs are a way to protect growing industries. We don't need tariffs. Like unless there's something fledgling, we don't need tariffs.
yeah. No, and even the infant industry argument is controversial.
Yes, yes it is.
Hamilton did it, and there's a lot of debate whether the U.S. needed the infant industry argument or not. A lot of economic historians like it, some don't like it. I keep saying I need to read more on it because I've read both sides, and it's an empirical question. You just have to test it and see what it is. But in the case, South Korea successfully did it. They had infant industry tariffs. Now they don't because they're fully developed. But 60s, 70s, and 80s they did, and it worked out. But then other countries like Brazil tried it. They tried to compete with IBM.
But
Well, they never did.
Brazil's different. Brazil, like just the Western Hemisphere. The Western Hemisphere doesn't have the discipline of the Eastern Hemisphere.
No.
They don't. I mean, it's like like Japan could do it, South Korea could do it, China can absolutely do it. America, I don't know. I don't.
We don't need to do it now. I mean, because we're a fully developed country, we're on the
That's huge.
technological frontier. This would be silly. This would be silly to have any protective tariffs.
All right.
I mean, maybe. See, that's the problem. Is some of these protective tariffs is they protect you from competition. So they just that's what happened in Brazil. The computer makers were like, huh, all right, I don't have to like compete now, and so they didn't keep up.
Japan did
So
the same thing, but not with tariffs. But Japan, and I'm just reading it from this book. Like I read this book every few years, and I always just get reminded. And so what Japan did is They were nailing the tech industry. They were doing great. And at the time in the 90s, they had the largest banks in the world. And they looked on paper just so much more threatening because they just had so much more capital to work with than like individual US banks. But what happened is the government started protecting the banks, and the government pretty much started protecting the banks, the insurance industries, and the corporate banks, protected them all so they didn't have to compete with one another. And then the consumers in Japan, they had no choice but to just go with like one type of banking, which gave very little interest rates. There was no real banking competition. While in America, they were tearing each other's gums out, just eviscerating each other, financial products, all kinds of things. And Japan just couldn't innovate their way, like financially, like that, because they were internally protectionist. And even though our banking system causes a lot of problems, we easily overtook Japan. We easily overtook the European banks. And even with the Chinese banks, I don't think they do anywhere near as developed financial instruments.
Well, part of the problem with Chinese banks is they have capital controls. So to do international work is
Yeah.
it's very difficult. Someone asked, "Can we win a trade war against Europe?" A trade war is a loss once you start it. Trade cooperation is how you win those wars.
Yeah, and I want to know, what do you mean win? Because like maybe a company can make more money, but the consumer, like us regular people, we're screwed. We're completely screwed. Like I'm not a prepper, but I want to like tell people what they could do. Like, hey, buy beans, just in case, just like, not like the world's ending and there's a societal breakdown, but like if we do see shortages again, like COVID, just have some supplies ready. It just. I mean, I'm just. How do you think people should prepare for something similar to like the Great Recession? What should people do to prepare for something like that? Not the Depression, the Great Recession.
Yeah. What? Yeah, I should like have an answer off the top of my head. And I bought a house, so wait for it to crash and then buy the dip. Buy the dip, everybody. Hold off and buy the dip. I mean, that's the dip, right? What I would do right now, I would do if you're looking to buy a washing machine, if you're looking to buy a big ticket item, a vehicle or something, do it now. If you're maybe it's time to go buy some shoes because leather product. One of the studies I saw is that leather products are going to see a huge increase in prices. So buy clothing, buy shoes. I'd say buy bananas, but like they go bad after a while, right? So something durable. If it's so some clothing, shoes, vehicle, appliances. If those types of purchases, do that now. That's because prices are just going to go up.
Even a car, like cars, we were already getting used to cars being expensive, but if this really happens and there's not some deal worked out, like, oh my God, it's like, I mean, if we're tariffing Mexico, I think we're tariffing Mexico really to punish like our manufacturers that are producing in Mexico, because 25% of all American pretty much like 25% of American cars are made in Mexico, might be even higher, and so it's like so we punish American manufacturers. All right, fine. Then American cars become more expensive, but then cars that are made in America, like maybe they can actually, when I say cars made in America, I'm talking about Volkswagen, Toyota, Hyundai, Audi. They have a huge manufacturing. All they have to do is they can increase their prices now to just under American cars.
Yeah.
So prices still go up. Prices can still go up because
they will. They will, because there'll be less competition from abroad, and and building these factories takes a long time.
Is it like 3 to 5 years for like a car factory? And I know semiconductors, it takes like 7 to 10.
No, they just the plant in Arizona got built in just a couple years.
What? Okay, great. All right. Oh no, I'm thinking nuclear power plants. Sorry.
Oh, maybe it's okay. It took years, but it took that plant in Arizona
it's still years. Years.
It took years.
So we could go through economic calamities before the factories are even in production.
How much of these tariffs are actually related to an emergency? There is no emergency. The emergency is fake.
Yeah.
In fact, the Senate agreed. The Senate passed a resolution saying the emergency is fake.
Yeah.
That's right. The Republican-controlled Senate. There were, I mean, it was McConnell and Murkowski and Susan Collins. It was more than four. I think they got four, and then Rand Paul. So they had four Republican senators to vote out with the Democrats and say that it's fake. There is no emergency.
Well, I mean, maybe there was an emergency in 2018 when we just tariffed China for no real good reason, and
The gifts.
we skyrocketed the deficit higher than it ever was. And I mean, like the deficit went to $3 trillion. I mean, COVID was a part of that, but a lot of it was, like our economy just took a massive hit because our number one trading partner just got a huge trade barrier, and we've been in an incredible deficit ever since the tariffs with China and the Trump tax cuts. And I'm guessing we're going to have a higher deficit because we're probably going to have to borrow our way out of this mess.
Well, they're already planning on a higher deficit.
Yeah.
That's what's infuriating about it. I mean, best case scenario, we raise, because it's so annoying when they do these budget analyses, they do it over a 10-year period. So they give you these 10-year decade numbers, but then we always think of the budget in an annual sense, right? So the annual deficit's $2 trillion a year right now. But I think annually, well, over 10 years, we expect maybe 2 point something trillion in tariff revenue. So 2 point something, and I got to pull up a calculator because I want to convert it all into annual numbers because that's kind of how normally we think about it, even though these reports give it. So 2.5 trillion divided by 10. So we're looking at maybe 250, maybe $300 billion a year from tariff revenues.
Won't that cover income tax?
Well, no. So if that's the only thing we do, we get $200 to $300 billion more of revenue from tariffs.
Exactly.
Fine. But the deficit's $2 trillion.
Yes.
So it's a piece, it's a meaning, but right. But then the tax cuts that they want to extend, I mean, we're looking at $5 trillion more. So that's another $500 million of tax cuts. So the size of the tax cuts, and this, okay, current trajectory is the deficit keeps going up. You tack on tax cuts, that deficit is going to go up by even more. You include the revenues from tariffs, and it doesn't counteract the new tax cuts. So not only is the deficit growing, but the deficit's going to grow by even more if these bills go through the House and get signed.
So if these bills go through the House and the tax cuts happen, and we have tariffs, what is in store for the United States economy? Like just the what we mentioned before, the slow deflation, or something worse? Because I'm expecting something worse than a slow deflation. If those tax cuts,
it's not. This is the opposite of deflation. So it's just step back.
I don't mean deflation of our scenario. I mean deflating the balloon. It's a poor use of words. I mean the balloon of our economy deflate, not deflation like prices dropping. My mistake. I shouldn't have said that to an economist.
What would it? Yeah. So what would it do to the economy? Well, it's expansionary fiscal policy. So expansionary fiscal policy is going to increase spending. We'll see. These tax cuts will increase investment growth. They will increase spending growth. All of this, but the problem is, we already have a fairly decent economy. So doing that, it can be inflationary. You tack on the negative supply shocks from the inflation. Negative supply shocks from the tariffs. And the tariffs are not raising enough revenue to dampen demand enough. So you get a huge demand increase from the tax cuts. You get a negative supply shock from the tariffs. And in net, you get higher prices. All of this is inflationary. And so what does the Fed do? The Fed, when they see these higher prices, now they have a story. Are they going to attack the high prices with higher interest rates? If that's the case, that balloons the debt even more. Or are they going to choose the, focus on unemployment caused by all these supply chain disruptions and whatnot, especially over the next year? So they're in a tough spot. Stagflation is tough for the Fed to fight. We can get out of control inflation, or we can get a deeper and deeper recession, depending on which side they go.
So what if, with all this inflated money, we start pouring, let's say the government comes to a senses and they're like, okay, we got to start building houses again. We have to start building tons of houses. And we need to take on new infrastructure projects. Let's say they tack on $2 trillion in infrastructure and they build 5 million houses in a couple years. Could that offset it? What was that?
Would that be enough to offset it? Hi, Grady. I have no idea. This is an empirical question. You have to throw it into a model, throw these numbers into a model, and see what it spits out. Um,
Well, the reason why is the economic multiplier of infrastructure can range between like what 1.3 to like 2.5 or something like that. So if we, and then with with home investment, that could be up to like 2 to 3, the money multiplier. So if we start like just shooting out crazy GDP growth again, and our GDP,
so let's say AI takes off in a productivity labor way.
yes,
We start building like crazy, and that helps boom. We start building cheap energy.
yeah.
With solar power. Could it offset the negative effects? Yeah, because I mean, we're thinking the negative effects of these tariffs and the balloon public debt. It's not catastrophic. Within depending on what happens in the uncertainty world. So it's not catastrophic. So yeah. In this hypothetical, I'll say it's possible.
Hypothetical. Okay, yeah, because and if like let's say because some people, and I'm agreeing with this now, some people are claiming that like not only does Trump want the Fed to lower interest rates to like line pockets and like just get line the pockets of his cronies, but if like Treasury yields start dropping to like 1% again, and we have what $7 to $9 trillion of debt coming up this year, and we can refinance that to like a 1% interest rate, then we lower the cost of servicing our debt.
Okay, but we started off here. The plan to do that crashes the economy. That's going to shrink revenues and increase expenditures. Because if they want to stay in power, they'll have to do stimulus. They'll have to do unemployment insurance goes up automatically, right? So there's just the fact that we have a graduated income tax means less tax revenues. So I don't see that the savings we would get from less spending on interest would make up for the loss of revenue from a crashed economy.
Loss of revenue from a crashed economy, but if we jump in, like I was just tacking on the lower interest rates with like the forced, like the stimulus of like home construction and infrastructure investments. That's what
did all that. Well, I mean, these are all you'd have to
hypothetical. I know.
No, I know. I guess that's a lot of things to keep track of, and all that matters is magnitudes and what is the magnitude of all these effects. But you're right. There's plus effects and minus effects. So if you do enough plus effects and enough minus effects, it can balance out.
This reminds me, and I think it's from this book too. Harry Truman said he just wants he wants to have a one-armed economist working with him.
Wow. Okay.
No, listen. Do you know why? Wait, do you know why he said that?
Why did Truman say that?
Because he said economists are always going, on one hand, you have this good thing, but on the other hand,
you have this bad thing.
But if you didn't have a one-armed economist,
one-hand economist, but you'd have to plug it into a model and see, and that's with the magnitudes to these numbers. I don't have that inside my head, so I'd have to do that. Someone said your anxiety plateaued an hour ago. Oh, I'm glad it plateaued instead of kept growing. That's worth.
Yeah, silver lining. I mean, I think I'm concerned, but like we've agreed on this for a while. The American economy is so big, it's so agile, and we have been dealing with supply shocks since 2018. We've been dealing with like massive world-shaking supply shocks since 2018. So maybe we can actually maneuver this to like minimize the actual damage. Because right now, I remember, and I'm so glad you did this. The Atlanta Fed predicted a 2.4% drop in GDP growth, but then the New York Fed put up like maybe 1.2%.
2.5. New York Fed is
because they use different metrics for prediction.
Yeah, and I've asked a whole bunch of people, hey, which one's better? Because I'm not an expert on either of them, and no one's telling me yet.
Okay, there you go. So, but just that, like, it's just your post said it. It's like it was scary sensationalism, and it sold. And why that's the story spread. And I, even though I did not vote for Donald Trump, I am ashamed of how the Democrats are just immediately going, he's going to destroy the economy. He's going to completely destroy the economy. Everything's going to be so terrible. And it's like, let's just wait. I don't think he's going to make the economy great again. I definitely don't think that. But like, let's wait till we see if there's enough evidence to suggest that. Because right now it's the stock market that's hurting. And the stock market can take a severe beating before it actually starts impacting what the real economy is.
Absolutely. There'll be a delay. I mean, we just got a jobs report, and the jobs report that came out Friday, that would be for March jobs. It was fantastic. So it was a good jobs number. But someone said they're praying for a recession, need a house. How are you going to afford a house when you don't have a job?
Yeah.
That's
Unless
not
unless
that
your job
hard.
is protected. Remember, recession isn't this nice thing.
No.
Maybe if you work in New York City and it's not like a very high paying job, or San Francisco. Well, no, San Francisco, they get hit so hard. But I mean, like, I got friends in New York, and whenever there was a recession, unless they were like making a ton of money, they didn't lose their job. If they were in very high positions, yeah, they absolutely got axed. But I mean, I knew some people who worked at Whole Foods, and they were like, yeah, there was a recession, but nobody lost their jobs because it's a grocery store in New York City. You're not, you know, like those just do very, very well. It's such a high population dense area. It's.
Yeah. Well, and what would the nature of this recession? A tariff-induced recession, exporters would be harmed. So farmers would be harmed. A lot of our manufacturing that exports will be harmed. Anything, yeah, our export industry, I think, would feel it first.
Oh yeah, of course, sure.
Then our everyone who imports. So I mean, retailers will feel it. Everyone will pull back on retail. Anybody who does, no one's going to buy bananas and coffee anymore. We all got to pull back on our coffee consumption because we can't grow enough coffee here. I'm just.
Yeah, you're right. Coffee will go up.
Well, I think Michigan will get hurt because of the vehicle manufacturing.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Well, that's one thing I think I'm concerned with. If a recession does happen and it disproportionately affects the auto industry, that
yeah,
takes apart union power in America.
yeah,
That like a huge recession targeted at the manufacturing industry, mainly our auto manufacturing industry. Oh man.
Watermelon Army says coffee isn't tariffed. Do you have a source for that, Watermelon
Yeah,
Army?
exactly. You know what? I get so many people who say, "Oh, this isn't tariffed or this isn't that." I look it up and I'm like, "Yes, it is." Just show me your source. Don't just say this is. I could say that. I could say I'm 7 foot two. Like, according to whom, man? Yeah, Watermelon Army. I don't care you saying yeah. Really, name the source.
The source. Now, I'm open-minded. I mean, I'm all about sources. These things get complicated.
Yeah, and the Bitcoin appraiser just said blanket tariffs. So if there's see,
There are some exceptions, and I think the list for exemptions is going to keep growing. Someone asked earlier, I think there's another good point. One problem with doing the tariffs this way, especially doing the tariffs where it's one man can do it, you don't have to get approval from Congress,
yeah.
is this is going to be a huge vehicle for corruption.
Oh
A
God,
huge vehicle
right.
for bribery, corruption. Those who are more politically connected to the White House will see tariff relief.
So Watermelon Army said he's a coffee buyer around the world, Chris, and apparently,
cite the source. Cite the
yeah,
source.
cite your source. I know so many fools in industries who don't
you
know
are
their
a coffee,
industry.
if you
Right.
are a coffee buyer, then you're going to know you're going to know the executive order. You're going to know the document that says this.
Yes.
So what
Exactly.
document did the White House put out that says this?
Yeah, and not just that. Again, maybe coffee from one country won't get tariffed, maybe, but coffee comes from what, like 14, maybe 25 different countries. I don't even know, but I know you can grow coffee almost everywhere.
Mexican coffee is in the TMSC or whatever it's called. Yeah, that's true. But where's the rest of them?
Yeah.
Do you do speaking engagement? Says Tiki Talkie Timbo. Yeah, sure. Of course, your prices haven't gone up. The tariffs just went into 10% tariffs just went into effect 2 days ago, and the reciprocal tariffs are going to go into effect on the 9th. Not even in effect yet.
Let's not highlight Watermelon Army's day anymore. Let's just ignore the nonsense and deal with serious people. But you should do speaking engagements, Chris. You have a good voice for it. You're very you convey information well. You keep people wanting to listen. Like I don't know how you don't have like a million freaking followers.
I don't know. I get too busy. Like I got way busy in the middle of the semester here and couldn't post for a minute. But then this all happened, and I said that's the priority. I got to post. Got to post again.
Thank you. Honestly, thank you. It helps. It's another source of like reason during the storm.
Little Jones is asking a question. That's an interesting question. How long until 401k starts earning money again? How long before the bottom? I mean, the J.P. Morgan is predicting another few months of decline.
Yes.
And J.P. Morgan is also saying that if maybe it's Goldman Sachs, I get them all confused, is saying that if we keep these tariffs coming in on the 9th, and if there's retaliatory tariffs, then guaranteed recession, and a decent sized recession is what they're saying. So
I don't trust them. I don't trust them because, a couple weeks ago, one of those guys was saying, "Oh yeah, there are not going to be any rate cuts in 2025. Maybe there'll be one in the third quarter." Yeah, they don't know. But now they're both pricing in 5 rate cuts. So it's like,
because they think, well, but the reality is, if the unemployment rate jumps up to 4.5% to 5%,
yes,
and if inflation only bumps up a little, we're getting rate cuts. But the scenario is, what if inflation bumps up by a lot and unemployment bumps up by a lot? I don't know what they'll do. They'll have to make a choice.
Yeah,
they'll have to make a choice.
I mean, if there's inflation and unemployment, I think we'll cut rates just to pay off the debt, and we'll shoot ourselves in the foot, and hope it doesn't get infected, because they're going to see okay, we can't have a contraction in the money supply, and I think they'll just lower rates, push for fiscal stimulus, pay off a huge chunk of debt, get the lower thing, try to get ahead of it before unemployment gets so high that we stop being able to collect, that the government stops being able to collect the revenue that it wants, to the level that they think is necessary.
Yeah, and the Fed's tool is on the demand side of the economy, and this tariff shock is a supply side shock. So, yeah, I could see them and Jay Powell has prioritized unemployment over prices anyway. That's why we got into trouble back in 2021 and 2022. So I think that's probably a good guess.
Now, what if we... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Warpath was asking a different question here. I can do it briefly. Do we trust the last month's job numbers? Yeah, I see no reason why not to.
Now, what if we attack Iran? If we attack Iran, that will just listen.
What do you mean, as an ally with Israel, we attack Iran?
Yeah, well, we're already surrounding them. I mean, I don't know if we actually do it, but if we actually do attack Iran, that'll shoot oil prices up, right? Oil prices are at $60 a barrel. That's crushing Russia. I don't know if it's intentionally or not, but it's crushing Russia's ability to fund the war, because they need a break even of, from what I'm reading, between $80 to $90.
Wait. Yeah. But I got confused. If we crash Iran, oil prices go up.
Yes.
That's good for Russia.
Oh, yeah. It's good for Russia, because then Russia could fund the war with Urals oil. But if it does shoot the price of oil up, maybe Saudi Arabia and OPEC will stop the production cuts and start releasing oil into the economy again.
I saw maybe you've been following. I saw a headline this morning that OPEC was increasing production.
Yeah, they keep saying they're going to, but then something happens. They're like, maybe not this quarter. Okay, just.
I thought they actually were, and that was one of the reasons prices have dropped in the past few days. In addition to the tariffs, that's what the headlines.
No, let me see. No. You may be right then, because I haven't read that. I haven't read it in about a week, because I just remember reading months ago they were going to do it. They were definitely going to do it, and they didn't, and then they were going to do it again, and then they didn't. So. Wow. I've literally just been watching everything, but I haven't seen the production the production increases again. So you might be right. I'm gonna just assume you're right. Okay, well then it was like a news aggregate. I wasn't reading a expert. It was like a business thing that was summarizing someone else. You know how these things go. If they do, then things are probably really bad, because they just need revenue now. Now they're just desperate for revenue.
All right, so we got a couple other questions about the job numbers. Somebody asked if the government layoffs are included. They are starting to be. We'll get more. The funny thing is, and this kind of cuts both ways according to the rhetoric, the government, federal government, does not employ that many people. It's not, everyone says it's huge. Well, it is huge by some measures, of course, but it's also not that big relative to the economy. So these layoffs are not going to have a huge macroeconomic effect on the labor market.
Oh yeah, the federal federal employees, they don't do that much of a dent.
Yeah. We have 5 million. It's millions of people get separated from their jobs every month, and millions of people get hired every month.
Yeah.
So the fact that we have 10,000 or 100,000 layoffs here, that'll be. Regionally that could have a big effect, but in terms of the entire economy, no.
Exactly. Yeah. The biggest problems that we have, well, one is our huge cost of servicing the debt. What is that, $800 billion? And then there's Social Security, that's $1 billion, and then Medicare, Medicaid. Okay, fine. I would love it if that could actually be cleaned. If that could actually be cleaned up, or our defense spending. And I'm like that needs to be audited. I don't really know if Doge is the team to do that.
I'd like a little more competence. Yeah, someone asked me how many federal government employees. I forget the number.
I'll say 500,000.
It's 3 million.
3 million federal employees.
Yeah.
All right, so 3 million. Let's say they get $100,000 a year each of them. Let's be really crazy. Then what is that? Like 300 billion a year?
Sure. I mean, we're just back of envelope, but yeah. The personnel costs for the budget are tiny.
Okay, but still, even if it's 300 billion a year for wages, okay, if we cut 100,000 jobs, that's nothing.
It's not. This is not affecting our deficit. No, not in any meaningful way.
$30 billion? No, I mean, I think the best way to hack away at the deficit is to just hack away at the debt. Hack away at our debt and just fuel whatever it takes to jump GDP growth, and that's going to be at the expense of a lot of corporations. But just like what you've been saying for 2 years, build more homes.
We could. I mean, I'm not. Would building more homes grow GDP enough to fix it? I'm not too sure.
In 2019, we spent about $1 trillion on building homes.
Residential fixed investments around it is around
and
$1 trillion.
That year, because this isn't always, but that year got us over $3 trillion of just GDP growth.
Yeah, well, right, but every year we spend $900 to $1 trillion. So let's say we increased it by $500 billion a year. Part of it is those funds are coming from somewhere, so you're going to lower activity in other places, and then he froze. Oh, all right, you're back. You would lower activity in some places and increase activity in others. You get long run GDP growth from productivity growth, so AI could be a source. But this kind of like increased spending, not increased spending, that's only going to increase GDP if you have slack.
But if we get rid of zoning, if we curtail a lot of zoning laws, we're not taking away activity, are we? If we curtail zoning laws,
my point being is, if you're at an economy with relatively full employment already, because we have relatively full employment right now, unemployment rate's 4.2, which maybe can go back down to like 3.5 or something.
But there's people who are underemployed. What about the people who are underemployed? Who are not in the labor force?
No, I get that. But my point is, we have some slack, perhaps, but we don't have a massive amount of slack. So then, when you start doing stimulus, whatever it is, getting people to spend here, getting people to spend there,
yes,
and you're near full employment, wherever that is, you're just going to shuffle things around.
Yeah, you're right.
In building houses is a place to shuffle things around because that's a problem. Sure. But in terms of, is this going to grow the macroeconomy? No, the effect would be pretty muted there.
Really? Like if we just started like removing zoning laws like in like 20 states and we let immigrants in again, like we were like, okay,
we'll let immigrants in again?
We should. Well, okay. I forgot
right.
to mention that. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. But we freaking need them. We need immigrants.
So the reason why letting immigrants in is because now we don't just have a fixed pot anymore.
Yes.
Now the pot is growing, and letting immigrants in would be a fantastic way to do this. Yes.
Yes.
Especially high-skilled immigrants too. Like there's some debate on whether like some of these low-skilled illegal immigrants are a drag on the economy in the short run. But you bring in just open the floodgates for high-skilled immigrants and open the floodgates for a legal process and to help build. Yeah, you could increase the GDP that way.
Yeah, because you're right. I forgot to. I didn't include that we actually need an immigrant population because, it's true. You're right. If we are at like close to full employment, you will be taking one resource from one place to another, unless we have people who are no longer participating in the labor force officially coming in. Because
but our labor force participation rate's fine once you adjust for demographics. I mean, it's been going down like this, but that's just because the population is aging.
Yeah.
But if you get a prime age labor force participation is a common way to do this. So ages 25 to 54 or whatever, all these different measures. You find the labor force participation is pretty high. And in fact, one of the broadest measures we have is employment to population ratio. So that is just you take the total amount of jobs and you divide it by the total population. So, and even that, by that measure, employment to population ratio is pretty high.
Oh my gosh! Thank you for telling me that. Employment to population ratio.
It's a little broader than labor. The problem is the labor force formal definition is weird. because it's like civilians, so that we don't count military. It doesn't count people in jails. There's about 1 million people we have in jail. It doesn't count. It's just it can get a little funky, which is fine. Like all these things like have a reason.
Yeah.
But employment to population ratio is like clean. Like there's no, you just do it. I should say prime age employment to population ratio. That helps take care of all of that.
We have 2 minutes. So
Okay, what can we do in 2 minutes?
I got my question. All right, get ready. All right, hold on to your shirt. Okay, no. So what is the best case scenario with this current tariff policy? Like, what is the best case scenario?
Best case scenario is you get some adults in the room. So there's a lot of infighting.
Come on, let's be realistic.
No. Hear me out. There's a lot of infighting between Peter Navarro and Besant and Kevin Hazlitt. All these people are fighting. They have different goals. And part of the problem is we have contradictory goals and you can't achieve them all. So you get someone to win the internal political battle in the White House. And that person is focused on reciprocal tariffs, is focused on fair trade, and is focused on is a China hawk, right? So that way we appease everybody, and if that wins the internal battle, then the tariffs will be lower. The tariffs will be temporary rather than permanent. We won't use them as a source of revenue. That's the best case scenario. The likelihood of that happening, I think, is slim because I think Trump has long believed trade deficits are the way to think about this, and he's believed it for 40 years.
That's mercantilism.
Yes, it is.
That's mercantilism. Capitalism is what beat mercantilism.
Yes. Yep.
My rosy picture, best case scenario, best case scenario is countries start coming to the table and say we will not only give like 0 to no tariffs, we will also provide foreign direct investment, and we will also like limit how much we trade with China. I'm guessing there has to be some kind of and let's say India will say we will start buying less oil from Russia, and then Russia's economy starts to collapse like it did in the USSR, and we have to bail them out with concessions, so they have to pull out of Ukraine. And then okay, so trade barriers start coming down, but some stay, like maybe some in Mexico and China, and it hits us. But the benefits of other like improved trade deals with other countries will start to outweigh that, and we actually start to rebuild some manufacturing in this country, and we pull through it. That's my best case scenario, and
very good.
That's I say that as I'm like about to pour myself a bottle of scotch, like, okay.
I know, right? I mean, the damage has been done even if we make these temporary, but temporary is better than permanent.
Yeah.
Temporary is better than permanent.
Chris, thank you so much. Guys, everyone, you should be following Christopher Clarke. He's a professor of economics at Washington State University. Go who? Go Hawks or go
Cougs. Go Cougs.
Go Cougs. So sorry about that.
Go Cougs for the men's basketball for my former employer, University of Houston.
And mind you guys, he's been on TV. You've been on CNN and what else?
CNN International. I was quoted in NPR the other day. That was exciting.
Yeah. You got to get on some conservative stuff and get yelled at to really I
do. I'm all for it. I'd show up. Charlie Kirk is coming to my campus in a few days.
Oh my! Oh God! Please.
And debate trade with him. That would be fun.
Yeah, get someone to record that. I would love to see that. I would love. I would love to meet Charlie Kirk and just interrupt him every time he spoke.
Yeah,
like a fact. Just. Okay, thank you, Chris. This is great. This is such a great talk, guys. I'll put this up for my Patreon subscribers, and give Chris Clarke a follow. Chris, I'll see you later. Take care.
Bye. Good night, everybody.